Elliot Kane's heart pounded like a war drum as he stood in the glass-walled boardroom, watching his life's work unravel. The projector's glow illuminated faces, colleagues, rivals, executives, each one staring at the screen where his algorithm danced, now branded with someone else's name. He wanted to scream, to tear the room apart. But instead, he gripped his laptop, the one thing they hadn't taken, and let the truth burn inside him. Elliot had always been the odd one out at Nextlify, a Silicon Valley giant where innovation was currency and trust was a myth. As the only openly gay engineer in a sea of straight, Type A tech bros, he'd learned to navigate their world with a mix of grit and guarded charm. His project, a revolutionary AI system called Synapse, could predict market trends with eerie precision, promising billions for Nextlify. For 2 years, he'd poured his soul into it, coding through sleepless nights, fueled by coffee and a dream of proving himself. But now, standing in that boardroom on a crisp October evening in 2025, he saw his dream stolen. The presenter, Marcus Tate, flashed a smug grin as he walked the executives through his breakthrough. Marcus, with his polished suits and frat boy charisma, had been Elliot's closest confidant on the team, or so he'd thought. They'd shared late-night coding sessions, laughed over takeout, and even swapped stories about their lives. Elliot had opened up about his struggles coming out in a small Ohio town, fighting for a seat at the tech table. Marcus had listened, nodded, and then, apparently, taken notes. The betrayal cut deeper than the theft itself. Elliot's eyes flicked to the corner of the room, where Lena Chun, the team's data scientist, stood with folded arms. Her sharp gaze met his, a silent acknowledgement of the truth. Lena had warned him about Marcus months ago, her voice low over a cafeteria coffee. He's ambitious. Elliot, watch your back. But Elliot, naive and trusting, had brushed it off. Now, Lena's warning echoed like a prophecy. The boardroom erupted in applause as Marcus finished. Elliot's stomach churned. He could expose Marcus now, call out the lie in front of everyone. But he had no proof Marcus had been careful, erasing his digital fingerprints, claiming the code as his own. Elliot's only evidence was locked in his mind and the encrypted laptop he clutched. Synapse wasn't just code. It was his creation, his rebellion against a world that had always tried to box him in. And there was one piece of it Marcus didn't have: via a hidden system, a failsafe Elliot had built in secret, buried deep in the code. It was his ace, his untouchable edge. As the meeting ended, Marcus approached, his smile ablaze. "Great work, right?" he said, clapping Elliot's shoulder. "We're going to change the world." The words dripped with mockery, and Elliot's jaw tightened. He wanted to shove Marcus against the glass, demand answers, but he forced a nod instead. Revenge would come, but not here, not now. Outside, the Silicon Valley night buzzed with possibility. Elliot walked to his car, the laptop heavy in his hands. He thought of his younger self, the kid who'd coded in his bedroom to escape his father's disapproval, the teenager who dreamed of a world where he could be himself and still win. Synapse was that dream, and Marcus had stolen it, but not all of it. Elliot's failsafe, a self-learning module he'd nicknamed Ghost, was still his. Ghost could rewrite itself, adapt, and protect its core from tampering. It was the heart of Synapse, and Marcus didn't even know it existed. Elliot slid into his car, the city lights blurring through the windshield. He opened his laptop, fingers trembling as he logged into Ghost's interface. Lines of code glowed, a digital pulse that felt alive. "You're still mine," he whispered, a vow to himself and the system. Marcus might have taken the spotlight, but Elliot held the real power, and he'd use it to take everything back. The next morning, Nexlify's campus thrummed with its usual chaos, engineers darting between buildings, drones delivering coffee, screens flashing with data. Elliot sat at his desk, pretending to work on a side project while his mind raced. He needed a plan. Ghost was his leverage, but exposing Marcus would take more than code. He needed allies, evidence, and time, none of which he had in abundance. Lena slid into the chair beside him, her voice low. "You okay?" she asked, her dark eyes searching his face. Elliot hesitated. Trust was a gamble, but Lena had always been straight with him. She'd joined Nexlify a year after him, a brilliant coder who'd clawed her way up in a male-dominated field. They'd bonded over their shared outsider status, swapping stories of microaggressions and corporate games. "He stole it," Elliot said quietly, his voice raw. "Synapse. It's mine." Lena's expression didn't change, but her eyes hardened. "I figured. Marcus has been cozying up to the execs for weeks. What's your move?" Elliot glanced around, ensuring no one was listening. "I've got something he doesn't. A hidden system. But I need to prove he took my work without tipping him off." Lena leaned closer. "I've got access to the server logs. If Marcus moved files, there'll be a trace. But it's risky. HR's watching everyone since the last data breach." Elliot nodded, his pulse quickening. "Can you get me in?" She smirked. "For you. I'll try. But we need to be careful. Marcus isn't working alone." The warning lingered as Elliot returned to his screen, his fingers dancing over the keys. He opened Ghost's interface, checking its status. The system was still secure, its code untouched. But Marcus's betrayal wasn't just personal, it was a symptom of Nexlify's cutthroat culture, where ideas were currency and loyalty was a liability. Elliot had seen it before, brilliant engineers sidelined, credit stolen, dreams crushed under the weight of ambition. He'd always thought he could outsmart it, but now he was in the crosshairs. That night, Elliot met Lena at a dive bar off the highway, far from Nexlify's prying eyes. The neon lights cast a red glow over her face as she slid a USB drive across the table. "Server logs," she said. "I pulled what I could without setting off alarms. There's a trail. Marcus accessed your repos 3 months ago. Copied everything." Elliot's chest tightened. "Enough to nail him?" "Maybe," Lena said. "But he's got friends upstairs. You need more than logs. You need to catch him in the act." Elliot pocketed the drive, his mind racing. Ghost could help. The system was designed to monitor and adapt, but it could also track changes in Synapse's code. If Marcus was tweaking it, Ghost would know. And if Elliot could expose those tweaks as his own work, he might turn the tables. As he drove home, the city's glow felt like a challenge. Elliot wasn't just fighting for Synapse, he was fighting for himself. For every moment he'd been doubted, dismissed, or erased. He'd built Ghost to protect his work, but now it was more. It was his defiance, his proof that he could outlast the thieves and the liars. Marcus might have taken his code, but Elliot Kane was untouchable. And he was just getting started. Elliot's apartment was a sanctuary of controlled chaos code printouts pinned to the walls, empty coffee mugs scattered like artifacts, and a single photo of his younger self with his mom, smiling in a world that hadn't yet hardened him. He sat cross-legged on the floor, laptop open, the USB drive from Lena glowing faintly in the dim light. The server logs confirmed what he'd feared. Marcus had accessed his repositories, copied Synapse's core files, and covered his tracks with admin-level permissions he shouldn't have had. Someone was helping him, someone with real power. Elliot's fingers hovered over the keyboard, hesitating. Ghost's interface blinked, its sleek dashboard a reminder of the system's potential. He'd built Ghost as a safeguard, a shadow program that could monitor synapses' activity, detect unauthorized changes, and even lock out intruders. But using it now meant risking exposure. If Marcus or his allies caught wind of Ghost, they'd hunt it down, and Elliot's last advantage would vanish. He typed a command, pulling up Ghost's logs. The system had been tracking Synapse since the theft, and there it was proof of Marcus's meddling. He'd altered key functions, tweaking the algorithm to favor short-term gains over long-term stability. It was sloppy, amateur work, but it was enough to impress the execs who didn't know better. Elliot's blood boiled. Marcus wasn't just stealing. He was butchering his creation. A knock at the door startled him. He slammed the laptop shut, heart racing. "Who is it?" he called, his voice sharper than intended. "It's me," came a muffled reply. "Lena." Elliot let her in, relief mixing with paranoia. She carried a backpack, her expression grim. "We've got a problem," she said, tossing a tablet onto his couch. "Marcus is pitching Synapse to investors tomorrow. If he locks in funding, you're screwed. No one will care who wrote the code once the money's in." Elliot's stomach dropped. "Tomorrow? How did you?" I overheard him in the break room, bragging to his buddy Ryan from legal. "He's got the CTO in his pocket." "Elliot, this isn't just about code. It's a power play." Elliot paced, his mind a storm. The CTO, Vanessa Holt, was a legend in tech, ruthless, brilliant, and fiercely protective of Nextlify's bottom line. If Marcus had her backing, exposing him would be like storming a fortress. But Ghost gave Elliot a chance. He could use it to sabotage Marcus's demo, expose the flaws in his tweaks, and prove the original code was his. It was risky, borderline illegal, but sitting still wasn't an option. "What's your plan?" Lena asked, watching him closely. "You're not thinking of hacking the demo, are you?" Elliot stopped pacing, meeting her gaze. "Not hacking. Just showing the truth. Ghost can highlight Marcus's changes, make them crash during the pitch. If it fails publicly, the execs will dig deeper. They'll see it's my work." Lena's eyes widened. "That's bold. And dangerous. If they trace it back to you, they won't," Elliot said, more confident than he felt. "Ghost is invisible. I made sure of it." She nodded slowly, unconvinced but loyal. "Okay. But you need a backup. I'm digging into Marcus's emails tonight. If he's colluding with Vanessa or anyone else, I'll find it. Just don't do anything stupid without me." Elliot managed a faint smile. "Deal." After Lena left, he dove back into Ghost, coding late into the night. He programmed a subtle trigger during Marcus's demo. Ghost would amplify the flaws in his tweaks, causing Synapse to spit out erratic predictions enough to embarrass him but not destroy the system entirely. It was a tightrope walk, but Elliot was used to balancing on edges. The next morning, Nextlify's auditorium buzzed with anticipation. Investors in tailored suits mingled with engineers, their chatter a low hum of greed and excitement. Elliot sat in the back, his laptop hidden in his bag, Ghost's interface running silently. Marcus took the stage, his confidence radiating. "Synapse is the future," he declared, clicking through slides that showcased Elliot's work. The audience leaned forward, captivated. Elliot's fingers twitched, ready to activate Ghost. But then he saw her, Vanessa Holt, standing at the side, her eyes locked on Marcus with a look that wasn't just professional. It was personal. Elliot's gut twisted. Lena was right, Marcus wasn't alone. Vanessa's involvement changed everything. If Elliot tanked the demo now, he'd be taking on more than just Marcus. He'd be challenging the most powerful woman in the company. He hesitated, his thumb hovering over the key that would unleash Ghost. The screen flickered as Marcus ran a live demo, Synapse's predictions scrolling smoothly. For a moment, Elliot doubted himself. What if he was wrong? What if he lost everything: his job, his reputation, his chance to fight back? But then he remembered his mom's voice. Years ago, when he'd come out to her, "You're stronger than their hate, Elliot. Don't let them make you small." He pressed the key. The screen froze. Gasps rippled through the room as Synapse's predictions spiraled into nonsense wild numbers. Impossible trends. Marcus's face paled, his fingers fumbling at the keyboard. Just a glitch, he stammered. But the damage was done. Investors whispered, their faith shaken. Vanessa's expression darkened, her gaze cutting to Marcus like a blade. Elliot's heart raced, but he kept his face neutral. Ghost had done its job, exposing Marcus's tweaks without revealing itself. Now the real work began, proving the code was his before Marcus and Vanessa could regroup. As the auditorium cleared, Lena caught his eye from across the room. Her nod subtle but clear, "We're in this together." Elliot felt a spark of hope. He wasn't alone, and he wasn't done. Ghost was his weapon, but Lena was his shield. Together, they'd tear down Marcus's lies and build something unbreakable. The fallout from the demo was electric. By noon, Nextlify's internal chat channels buzzed with speculation. Some called it a glitch, others sabotage. Elliot kept his head down, blending into the chaos of the engineering floor. But his pulse hadn't slowed since he'd hit that key. Ghost had worked perfectly, exposing Marcus's flaws without leaving a trace. But the victory was fleeting. Marcus wasn't the type to go down quietly, and Vanessa Holt's silence was more dangerous than any outburst. Elliot met Lena in the server room, a cold, humming labyrinth of blinking lights and cables. She'd slipped in during the lunch rush, using her admin access to pull more data. "Marcus is panicking," she whispered, her fingers flying over a terminal. "He's emailing Vanessa, trying to pin the demo crash on a rogue update. But I found something else: chat logs between him and Ryan from legal. They've been planning this for months." Elliot's jaw tightened. "Planning what?" "To screw me over specifically." Lena shook her head. "Not just you. Anyone who threatened Marcus's spotlight. He's been hoarding code, taking credit for other people's work, too. You're just the biggest target because Synapse is the golden ticket." Elliot leaned against a server rack, the hum vibrating through him. "So what now?" "We've got logs, but they're not enough. Vanessa will bury this unless we have hard proof." Lena's eyes gleamed. "Then we get it. I've got a script running to cross-reference Marcus's commits with your original code. If we can show he copied your work line for line, time-stamped before his, we've got him." Elliot nodded, but doubt gnawed at him. Vanessa's involvement complicated everything. She wasn't just the CTO, she was a gatekeeper, someone who could make or break careers with a single email. If she was protecting Marcus, she'd crush anyone who challenged him. Elliot needed more than code. He needed leverage, something to make Vanessa hesitate. Back at his desk, he opened Ghost's interface, digging into its monitoring logs. The system had recorded every change Marcus made to Synapse, down to the minute. Elliot's original code was meticulous, elegant, built to last. Marcus's tweaks were a hack job, quick fixes to impress investors, but riddled with instabilities. Ghost had flagged them all, creating a digital paper trail that could bury Marcus. But using it meant revealing Ghost's existence, and that was a risk Elliot wasn't ready to take. That evening, he met someone new: Javier Morales, a junior engineer who'd been hovering on the edges of the Synapse project. Javier had approached him in the parking lot, his voice low, nervous. "I know what Marcus did," he said, glancing over his shoulder. "I saw him pull your code from the shared drive. I didn't say anything because, well, I'm new. I didn't want trouble." Elliot studied him. Javier's dark eyes were earnest, his hands fidgeting with a keychain. "Why tell me now?" Elliot asked. Javier hesitated, then squared his shoulders. "Because I'm tired of this place treating people like us like we're disposable. I'm queer, too, Elliot. I know what it's like to feel invisible here." The confession hit Elliot like a wave. He'd felt alone for so long, the only one navigating Nextlify's unspoken biases. Javier's words were a lifeline, a reminder that he wasn't fighting just for himself. "Can you testify?" Elliot asked. "If we take this to HR?" Javier swallowed hard. "Maybe. But only if you've got something concrete. Marcus has too many friends." Elliot nodded, his resolve hardening. Javier was a risk, but he was also an ally, one he desperately needed. "Stick with me," he said. "We'll get him." Over the next few days, Elliot, Lena, and Javier formed a quiet alliance, working in the shadows. Lena's script uncovered a gold mine, timestamps showing Elliot's code predated Marcus's by months, with identical functions copied verbatim. Javier, meanwhile, dug into the project's version control, finding metadata that linked Marcus's commits to Elliot's original files. It was damning, but not enough to topple Vanessa's influence. Elliot spent his nights refining Ghost, adding a new feature, a real-time tracker that could broadcast Synapse's changes to a secure server he controlled. If Marcus tried to demo the system again, Ghost could override it, displaying Elliot's original code on-screen with his name attached. It was a bold move, one that could backfire spectacularly, but Elliot was running out of options. On Friday, Marcus called an emergency team meeting. He stood at the head of the conference table, his charm fraying at the edges. "We've fixed the glitch," he announced, avoiding Elliot's gaze. "Synapse is ready for a second demo next week. Investors are still on board." Elliot's heart sank. Marcus was moving faster than he'd expected, and Vanessa's presence at the table, her sharp eyes scanning the room, meant the stakes were higher. He glanced at Lena, who gave a subtle nod. They had 1 week to act. That night, Elliot invited Javier to his apartment, showing him Ghost's interface. Javier's eyes widened as he scrolled through the code. "This is incredible," he said. "You built this alone?" Elliot nodded, a flicker of pride cutting through his exhaustion. "It's my insurance. If Marcus tries to demo Synapse again, Ghost can take over. But I need your help to pull it off without getting caught." Javier leaned back, his expression torn. "If we do this, we're not just taking down Marcus. We're challenging the whole system, Vanessa, the execs, the way this place works. Are you ready for that?" Elliot thought of his mom, of the kid who'd coded to survive, of every time he'd been told he didn't belong. "I've been ready my whole life," he said. The week before Marcus's second demo felt like a countdown to war. Elliot barely slept, his nights consumed by Ghost's interface, tweaking its tracker to ensure it could hijack Synapse's output without leaving a trace. Lena and Javier were his anchors, meeting in secret to pool their evidence. Lena's server logs, Javier's metadata, and Elliot's Ghost logs formed a mosaic of proof. But it still wasn't enough to guarantee victory. Vanessa Holt's shadow loomed over everything, her influence a wall they couldn't yet breach. Elliot's days at Nextlify were a performance. He smiled at Marcus, nodded in meetings, played the part of the defeated engineer while his mind churned with strategy. Marcus, oblivious, strutted through the office, his confidence restored as he prepped for the demo. But Elliot noticed cracks. Marcus's eyes darted too often. His laugh was too loud. He was nervous, and that gave Elliot hope. Lena uncovered a new lead, an encrypted email thread between Marcus and Vanessa, buried in a backup server. She couldn't crack the encryption, but the metadata showed frequent communication, late at night, far beyond professional boundaries. "They're close," Lena said, her voice tense as they met at the dive bar. "Too close. If we take Marcus down, Vanessa might come for us." Elliot gripped his beer, the cold glass grounding him. "Then we take them both down. Ghost can expose Marcus's code in the demo, but we need something on Vanessa, something undeniable." Javier, sitting across from them, spoke up. "I heard a rumor in the break room. Vanessa's pushing for a board seat, and Synapse is her ticket. If it fails, her reputation takes a hit. She's banking on Marcus to deliver." Elliot's mind raced. Vanessa's ambition was their leverage. If they could make Synapse's failure public, humiliate her in front of the board, she might turn on Marcus to save herself. It was a long shot, but it was all they had. The night before the demo, Elliot sat alone in his apartment, Ghost's interface glowing. He'd programmed a new sequence. During Marcus's presentation, Ghost would override the screen, displaying a side-by-side comparison of Elliot's original code and Marcus's tweaks, timestamped and credited to Elliot. It was a digital middle finger, a public unmasking. But it came with a cost. If Ghost was traced back to him, he'd be fired. Maybe worse. A text from Javier broke his focus. "Meet me at the park." "Got something." Elliot grabbed his jacket, nerves buzzing. The park was a quiet stretch of green near Nexlify, its benches empty under the streetlights. Javier waited, clutching a flash drive. "I cracked part of Vanessa's emails," he said, his voice low. "She knew Marcus was taking your code. She told him to do it, said it was better for the company if he fronted the project." Elliot's breath caught. "You're sure?" Javier nodded. "It's not enough to take her down, but it's a start. If we use this with Ghost's demo hack, we can show the board she's complicit." Elliot took the drive, his hands trembling. This was their chance to expose not just Marcus, but the system that enabled him. But doubt crept in. What if they failed? What if Vanessa's power was too much? He thought of his mom again, her voice steady. "You're stronger than their hate." He clung to that, letting it fuel him. The demo day dawned bright and brutal. Nexlify's auditorium was packed. Investors, board members, engineers, all eyes on Marcus as he took the stage. Vanessa stood at the back, her face unreadable. Elliot sat in the middle, laptop open, Ghost ready. Lena and Javier flanked him, their presence a quiet strength. Marcus began, his voice smooth, pitching Synapse as the future of tech. The screen glowed with charts, predictions, promises of wealth. Elliot's finger hovered over the key. He glanced at Lena, who nodded, then at Javier, whose jaw was set. This was their moment. He pressed the key. The screen flickered, then split. On one side, Marcus's demo ran, its predictions wobbling. On the other, Elliot's original code appeared, pristine, time-stamped, his name in bold. The auditorium went silent, then erupted in murmurs. Marcus froze, his eyes darting to Vanessa, who looked like she'd been slapped. "Whose code is this?" An investor barked, standing up. Elliot stood, his voice steady despite the hammering in his chest. "It's mine. I built Synapse. Marcus stole it, and I can prove it." The room exploded. Marcus stammered, his charm crumbling. Vanessa stepped forward, her voice cutting through the chaos. This is a misunderstanding. We'll investigate. No, Elliot said. Louder now. I have logs, timestamps, metadata. And I'm not the only one who knows. He nodded to Lena and Javier, who stood beside him, unwavering. The board members exchanged glances, their faces grim. Vanessa's composure cracked, just for a second, but it was enough. Elliot felt a surge of triumph. Ghost had done its job, and his allies had held the line. Marcus's lies were unraveling, and Vanessa's power was slipping. As security escorted Marcus from the stage, Elliot caught his eye. There was no smug grin now, just fear. Elliot didn't smile back. He didn't need to. The truth was out, and he was untouchable. The aftermath of the demo was a whirlwind. Nextlify's board called an emergency meeting, and Elliot, Lena, and Javier were summoned to present their evidence. The conference room felt like a courtroom, with stern-faced executives lining the table and Vanessa Holt sitting at the head, her expression a mask of control. Elliot clutched his laptop, Ghost's interface still running in the background, a silent reminder of his power. He laid out the case methodically, the server logs, Javier's metadata, the email fragments implicating Vanessa. Lena spoke next, her voice calm but razor-sharp, detailing Marcus's access to Elliot's repositories. Javier, nervous but resolute, explained how he'd uncovered the version control discrepancies. The board listened, their questions probing but fair. Vanessa remained silent, her eyes fixed on Elliot like a predator sizing up prey. When they finished, the board chair, a gray-haired man named Harold Grayson, leaned forward. These are serious allegations, he said. If true, they point to a failure of leadership. His gaze flicked to Vanessa, who didn't flinch. I assure you, she said, her voice smooth. I had no knowledge of Marcus's actions. If he stole code, he acted alone. I'll personally oversee an investigation. Elliot's stomach twisted. She was slipping out, redirecting blame. But he'd anticipated this. Check the emails, he said, sliding Javier's flash drive across the table. They show you knew. Vanessa, you encouraged him. The room went still. Harold took the drive, his expression unreadable. We'll review everything, he said. You're all dismissed. Outside, Lena grabbed Elliot's arm. You pushed hard in there. Too hard. Elliot shook his head. Not hard enough. She's covering her tracks. We need to keep Ghost active. Monitor her moves. Javier looked pale. If she finds out we have those emails, she'll come for us. Then we stay one step ahead, Elliot said, his voice firm. Ghost can track her access to Synapse. If she tries to bury this, we'll know. The next few days were tense. Nextlify suspended Marcus pending investigation, but Vanessa remained untouchable, her influence shielding her. Elliot, Lena, and Javier worked in secret, using Ghost to monitor Synapse's servers. The system flagged unusual activity. Someone was trying to rewrite its core, erasing Elliot's signatures. It wasn't Marcus. He'd been locked out. It had to be Vanessa. Elliot's apartment became their war room. Lena brought takeout. Javier brought energy drinks. And they huddled around Elliot's laptop, Ghost logs painting a damning picture. Vanessa was sanitizing Synapse, stripping it of any trace of Elliot's work. She's prepping to relaunch it under her own name, Lena said, her voice tight. If she succeeds, we're done. Elliot's fingers flew over the keyboard, coding a new Ghost feature, a lockout protocol. If Vanessa tried to deploy her version of Synapse, Ghost would shut it down, displaying a message crediting Elliot as the creator. It was a nuclear option, one that could cost him his job, but he was past caring about consequences. Javier watched, his admiration clear. "You're not just fighting for Synapse, are you?" he said. "This is personal." Elliot paused, his eyes on the screen. "I grew up hiding who I was," he said quietly. "Coding was my way out, my proof I was enough. Synapse is Mimi Hart, my fight. I won't let them take it." Javier nodded, his own resolve strengthening. "Then we fight with you." The breakthrough came on a rainy Tuesday. Lena cracked the full email thread between Vanessa and Marcus, revealing explicit instructions to steal Elliot's code. "It's a career ender," Lena said, her eyes gleaming. "We've got her." Elliot felt a rush of adrenaline. "We need to get this to the board before she relaunches Synapse." They crafted a plan. Javier would leak the emails anonymously to a tech journalist with a reputation for exposing corporate corruption. Lena would back up Ghost's logs to an external server, ensuring they couldn't be erased. Elliot would activate the lockout protocol if Vanessa tried to demo her version of Synapse. It was a three-pronged attack, risky but precise. The night before the board's final decision, Elliot couldn't sleep. He sat on his balcony, the city lights a distant hum, and thought of his mom. She died 2 years ago, but her words still carried him. "Don't let them make you small." He'd spent his life proving he belonged first in his hometown, then at Nexlify. Now, he was fighting for more than himself. He was fighting for Lena, for Javier, for every engineer who'd been silenced by greed and power. The next morning, the tech journalist's article dropped. A scathing expose titled, "Nexlify's Stolen Code, a CTO's Betrayal." It cited the emails, naming Vanessa and Marcus. By noon, Nexlify's stock was tanking, and the board called an emergency meeting. Elliot, Lena, and Javier watched from the sidelines as Vanessa was summoned, her face pale for the first time. Elliot's phone buzzed a text from Harold Grayson, "Meet me now." His heart pounded. This was a moment that would make or break him. Elliot walked into Harold Grayson's office, his laptop under his arm, Ghost still running silently. The board chair sat behind a massive desk, the city skyline framing him like a judge. Lena and Javier waited outside, their presence a quiet reassurance. Harold's face was grim, the journalist's article open on his tablet. "Sit," he said, his voice low. "We need to talk." Elliot sat, his pulse a steady drum. "You saw the article," he said, not a question. Harold nodded. "It's caused a firestorm. Vanessa's claiming it's fabricated, but the emails are real. We verified them." He leaned forward, his eyes sharp. "What I want to know is how you got them, and what else you're hiding." Elliot's throat tightened. He'd prepared for this, but the weight of Harold's gaze was crushing. "I built Synapse," he said, keeping his voice even. "Marcus stole it, and Vanessa knew. I have logs, metadata, everything to prove it. And I have a system Ghost Hat can lock Synapse down if anyone tries to erase my work." Harold's eyebrows rose. "Ghost? You built an unauthorized system on company servers." "It's not on your servers," Elliot said quickly. "It's mine, hosted externally. I built it to protect my work. And it's the only reason I could prove Marcus's theft." Harold leaned back, studying him. "You're playing a dangerous game, son. If you're telling the truth, you're a hero. If you're lying, you're finished." "I'm not lying," Elliot said, sliding his laptop forward. He opened Ghost's interface, showing the logs, the timestamps, the undeniable proof of his authorship. This is my work, and I'll do whatever it takes to protect it. Harold's eyes softened. Just a fraction. You remind me of myself at your age. Hungry. Stubborn. But you've got more to lose. He paused, then added, Vanessa's out. She resigned an hour ago. Marcus is gone, too. The board's offering you a deal, full credit for Synapse, a promotion, and a stake in its profits. But there's a catch. Elliot's heart skipped. What's the catch? They want Ghost. Full access. No questions asked. Elliot froze. Ghost was his creation, his shield, the one thing that made him untouchable. Handing it over meant giving Nexlify his soul. But refusing could mean losing everything: his job, his reputation, his chance to change the game. He thought of Lena and Javier, waiting outside, risking their careers for him. He thought of his mom, her voice a beacon, you're stronger than their hate. Ghost wasn't just Cody, it was his defiance, his proof that he could outsmart a world that tried to erase him. But maybe winning wasn't about keeping Ghost. Maybe it was about using it to build something bigger. I'll give you access, Elliot said finally, his voice steady. But only if I lead Synapse's development. And Lena and Javier get promotions, too. They're part of this. Harold's lips twitched. Almost a smile. You drive a hard bargain. Done. Elliot left the office, his legs shaky but his heart soaring. Lena and Javier were waiting, their faces anxious. We did it, he said, his voice breaking. Vanessa's out. Marcus is gone. Synapse is ours. Lena hugged him, fierce and quick. Javier grinned, relief flooding his face. What about Ghost? He asked. Elliot hesitated, then smiled. It's still mine. For now. The next week was a blur of meetings, negotiations, and headlines. Nexlify announced Elliot as Synapse's creator, spinning the scandal as a triumph of integrity. Lena was promoted to lead data scientist, Javier to senior engineer. Elliot took charge of Synapse, rebuilding it from the ground up, with Ghost's core still hidden in his private server, a secret he wasn't ready to share. But the victory felt bittersweet. Nexlify's culture hadn't changed overnight. There were still whispers, sidelong glances, the same biases lurking beneath the surface. Elliot knew he'd won a battle, not the war. And then there was Javier. Their late-night planning sessions had sparked something: quiet moments, shared looks, a connection Elliot hadn't expected. Javier's courage, his quiet strength, had grounded him through the chaos. But Elliot wasn't sure if it was gratitude or something more. One evening, as they worked late in Elliot's apartment, Javier spoke up. You could have walked away, he said, his eyes on the code scrolling across the screen. After what they did, no one would have blamed you. Why stay? Elliot leaned back, his gaze drifting to the photo of him and his mom. Because running means letting them win. I built Synapse to prove I belong. And now, I'm proving it for us, for you, for Lena, for everyone they try to push out. Javier's smile was soft, his eyes warm. You're not alone anymore. You know. Elliot's chest tightened, a mix of fear and hope. He wanted to reach out, to close the distance, but the weight of the fight still lingered. Instead, he nodded. I know. Elliot stood at the edge of Nexlify's campus, the autumn wind sharp against his face, Synapse's new demo ready to launch. The past month had reshaped his world: credit restored, a team he trusted, and a quiet spark with Javier that he was still too cautious to name. Ghost remained his secret, its core locked away, a reminder that some battles required hidden weapons. But today wasn't about fighting. It was about building. The auditorium was packed again, but this time, Elliot took the stage. Lena and Javier stood at his side, their presence a silent vow of loyalty. The screen behind him glowed with synapses interface his interface, rebuilt stronger, smarter, truer to his vision. The audience leaned forward, investors and engineers alike, their eyes on him. Not Marcus, not Vanessa, just Elliot Kane, the kid from Ohio who'd coded his way to this moment. He began, his voice steady but alive with passion. Synapse isn't just a tool. It's a promise that ideas belong to those who create them, that no one can silence the truth. He clicked, and the screen lit up with predictions, flawless and precise, the culmination of years of work. The room erupted in applause, but Elliot's eyes found Javier's, his smile a quiet anchor. After the demo, as the crowd swarmed with questions, Javier pulled him aside. "You did it," he said, his voice low, his hand brushing Elliot's arm. "You changed the game." Elliot's heart raced, not from the applause but from the warmth in Javier's eyes. "We changed it," he corrected. "I couldn't have done it without you. Or Lena." Javier's smile deepened, and for a moment, the world shrank to just them. "What's next?" he asked. Elliot glanced at the stage, at the team he'd built, at the future he could finally see. "We keep going. We make Nextlify betterer, we build something new. Together." That night, they celebrated at the dive bar, Lena raising a glass to the untouchables. Laughter filled the air, but Elliot's thoughts drifted to his mom, to the kid who dreamed of this day. He'd fought for his place, not just for himself, but for everyone who'd been overlooked, dismissed, erased. Synapse was his victory, but so was this Lena's fierce loyalty, Javier's quiet courage, the possibility of something more. As they left the bar, Javier lingered, his hand brushing Elliot's. "You're not alone," he said again, softer this time, and Elliot felt the words settle deep. He didn't have all the answers, not about Nextlify, not about Ghost, not about the spark between them. But for the first time, he didn't need to. He'd built something unbreakable, not just in code but in the people around him. Elliot looked at Javier, the city lights reflecting in his eyes, and smiled. "I know," he said. And this time, he meant it. The fight wasn't over Nextlify's biases. The tech world's ruthlessness would always be there. But Elliot had Ghost, his team, and a truth no one could steal. He was untouchable, not because of his code, but because he'd found something stronger, a purpose, a family, a future. And that was worth everything.